Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back. We're live at SUP-X, the Startup Expo, with Sheppard, co-founder of GrowthX and GrowthX Academy, a 5-time founder with 3 successful exits, and today's keynote speaker. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'm excited to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Maybe before we get into all the stuff you guys are doing at GrowthX, let's get to know you a little bit better and maybe start off with kind of where you grew up, where you went to school, and maybe some career highlights along the way.
Sure. I was a Navy brat, so I was born overseas in Italy, and actually, when we came back stateside, I came through Florida into Jacksonville, and then back to California, where my mother's family's from, and I was mostly grew up in Northern California. We moved a lot. My father ran manufacturing for Intel Corporation later in life, and became a turnaround CEO in the semiconductor space, and so we traveled a lot. I had a wonderful role model for what it was like to be in the tech world. And then I had a passion for golf, so I went to college to play golf, and then and then I turned professional for a few years. And
how was that?
Kind of burnt. I loved it, but I was way too young and too stupid to know what I had.
Interesting.
But I left that world and got into tech by accident. And
how? Out of curiosity.
Well, I was looking for something to do other than golf, and my brother was in manufacturing in a tech company, and said, "Hey, they're hiring salespeople." So I got into enterprise sales, and I found out I was pretty good at it. Became the top guy in the company inside of a year and a half, but then I realized I wasn't a big company person. So I got recruited away to help co-found a startup, and that was the beginning of my startup career. And I've been very lucky to always be a founder, co-founder on the sales and marketing side, what I call the market developer, not the product developer. I always have great product development partners along the way. And I think the thing I'm probably most proud of is of the companies that I did exit. They all still exist in the market today, probably because I'm no longer there. I have 2 teenage kids. My daughter's going off to college in a month.
Very cool.
Married 18 years to a wonderful British woman.
Man. That's huge.
And now I spend most of my time traveling and doing these kinds of things to try and get back at scale and how to help companies grow and be successful, especially tech startups in particular.
So what exactly is GrowthX and the Academy, and how are they similar and different?
Well, GrowthX is more of an ecosystem than, say, a product or a service or a venture fund or a school or consulting or any of that stuff. We started as a group of serial entrepreneurs, turned investors, turned frustrated investors because our companies were failing because they couldn't sell or market. It's not because their product and technology didn't work. It's never been easier or cheaper to get a product to market today in tech. But as a result, it's never been a noisier, more crowded space, therefore more expensive and difficult to sell and create something sustainable. So we set to work on trying to solve that problem for ourselves. Only to learn over time, as we were solving it, that the data shows it. CB Insights says that 70 to 80% of funded companies, even in Silicon Valley, never get to another round of funding or never build anything that's sustainable or achieve break even. And most of the reasons, 8 of the top 10 reasons, have to do with the people and the markets, not the products and the technology. So we've addressed that with our market acceleration program that we built as a way to help our companies find what we call product market fit, which is when you actually have more customers than you can handle.
Which is never terrible.
Never terrible, but a great reason to go raise more money and scale if you're a venture capable business to begin with. And then through the course of that, helping our companies grow, we realized that there's really a lack of talented individuals that know how to take a company from 0 to 1.
Well, because they've never done it, right? In a lot of cases?
Correct. And it's not always do you need to have the experience, because you only get the experience by doing it. But do you have the right attributes, characteristics?
And what are those attributes?
Well, the first thing is you've got to have a growth mindset. So you've got to love learning, like be a learn-it-all instead of a know-it-all. You've got to embrace feedback as a gift and use that to build something that people care about. You've got to be problem focused, not product focused.
Sure.
You've got to be able to embrace ambiguity
Sure.
and look at a whiteboard and say that with nothing on it and say, I can see the vision and I recognize my reality today.
Sure.
And I want to, achieve that. You have to be incredibly resilient.
Yeah.
You have to have sound communication skills and be able to talk to the market as well as to the engineers in your team.
Sure, which is very tricky.
I always like to say, you have to be good at talking to humans and engineers.
Yeah.
Joke for you engineers out there. So that you can build something that solves a real problem. Because nobody cares about our products. They care about their problems and whether you can solve them. And I'm particularly focused, we are, on business-to-business software as a service.
Sure.
And so ultimately, it comes down to identifying a deep problem that you can solve with technology.
Sure.
That really is what matters most. And so you have to be well versed in communicating cross-functionally with teams, and you have to lead and drive that learning. It's kind of like being a chief learning officer at the early stage.
Sure.
In order to get there, and you have to love that. Like, it has to call you. And if it does, then we can teach you how to operate a framework that helps you get to the truth about where your product fits in the market, if it does it all.
Sure.
How to create a functional learning organization of the people responsible for that, and how to determine whether or not profitability exists at scale through the unit economics of it. And then if you can do those things, now you're literally cooking with gas. You've got a reason to go raise money, or you've got a way to sustain yourself. And that's ultimately what it's about. So if you have those attributes, then you can learn the skills.
Okay.
But it's more about having those attributes to be really good at taking something someplace new. Because that's what it's really all about.
But you named a lot of attributes there. Most people don't have all of those, or at least they're probably working on some of them.
No, most people don't. Most people don't.
So how do you work with them to fill in the gaps where they don't have those attributes?
Well, they need to be hiring. They need to be looking for those attributes and who they hire or partner with.
Sure.
Let's start with that. They haven't normally done that. They don't think about it that way.
Right.
People get romanticized by the idea of a startup, where they look at somebody who's been successful. They think it's an overnight success story. They have no idea the hell we put ourselves through.
Yeah.
As entrepreneurs.
Best and worst thing I've ever done.
Entrepreneur is just a French word for crazy. So you have to screen for that day one.
Okay.
Right? And you have to look for people that display those characteristics.
Sure.
If you do, you can work with those people all day long.
Yeah. Okay.
If you don't, you're going to be disappointed most of the time.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Interesting. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into GrowthX and what exactly the Academy is as well.
Sure.
And how they tie together.
Yeah. So sort of back to what we were just talking about. Once we became successful at helping the companies we invested in grow through our accelerator program, we realized that we couldn't scale ourselves, so we had to step away and let those companies grow themselves, which meant they had to hire people to work in those roles. And we found out that people weren't educated for this.
Sure.
And the university system and the school system in our country is completely whack. They don't train people for this.
Sure.
So we went, all right, well, nobody else is doing it. We should do it. So we launched an academy. So it's a boot camp that trains people in entrepreneurial selling, our core market acceleration programming, growth marketing, and UX design thinking, which are all the areas that help move the needle on the growth side of a business.
Sure.
They're the non-coding roles.
Interesting.
And so you take those people, and most of them are adults who already are accomplished, already educated, maybe coming from non-tech roles, but don't want to be a coder or tech founder.
Sure.
So they might be coming from real estate or law or finance or consulting or retail, who knows. But now we give them all the knowledge, skills, and behaviors necessary within the context of working in startups. So then what they do is they come in and they'll spend, depending on which kind of programming they take, they'll spend the majority of their time working on a real project with a real company.
Yeah, which is rare.
Yes, and then they'll learn from that what they like, what they don't like, if they want to do it. The startups in our portfolio get free help.
Yeah.
They get a portfolio of experience.
Yeah.
We build a global network of mentors that want to hire these people or you leverage them for projects.
Yeah.
And the community sort of takes care of itself. It becomes a virtuous cycle. So ultimately,
and they have a client too.
Yes, and we get people who are vetting startups for us to tell us if this is a good deal or not, or that this founder's a jerk or not.
Fair enough.
And we get all of that. So now it becomes a virtuous ecosystem of investing in companies, helping them grow, and then developing the talent to work in them.
Interesting. So how do you decide who gets to go into the academy? Can anybody sign up, or how does that work?
There's a screening process.
Okay.
I mean, anybody can take the self-service online stuff.
Okay.
But I mean, if you really want to go to a campus-based one, wherever they might be, we're pretty intentional about the people we screen for.
Okay.
You've got to share our value system, right? We're people first, transparent, very inclusive group of humans.
Sure.
Who with growth mindsets that are highly coachable and
Sure.
display the characteristics that I laid out before. Because if you don't, you're not going to have a good experience, and it's like any culture you create. You introduce toxicity and it spreads. So we don't want that.
Well, and it's a waste of everybody's time, right?
Exactly.
Even the person coming.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they're not going to work out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're as at least the core group of teammates at GrowthX, we don't want to work with people that don't share our value system.
Sure.
Because I don't think it's any different than any relationship.
Sure.
Relationships don't survive in difficult times if you don't have shared values.
No.
And there's no more difficult period in the world than being in a startup. Startups are an emotional roller coaster of madness.
Yeah.
And if you can't handle it, then it's not a place for you.
No, fair enough. And it's cool that you guys.
And that's okay, by the way.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Fair.
People are built for certain things and have a certain DNA. Most of who we are is wired into who we are. Entrepreneurship found me. I didn't find it. I just can't imagine ever working for somebody ever again, because it's just insane. Because I'm a horrible employee.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it's also cool that you guys basically incubate these companies and then you test their product market fit with a client or a few clients. And then if they're making money, that client can either potentially acquire them. You could put in more money.
Yes.
Like you basically building this whole like zero to exit.
Yeah.
I get it's more
complicated. It was never
than
the
that,
plan,
like,
right? It was never the plan.
Sure.
I think like most successful tech entrepreneurs, we were trying to solve a problem that we deeply understood and we're dealing with ourselves.
Right.
Like I always say, it's not the technology that wins; it's the insights that technology brings. Because nobody cares about our products. They care about their problems, whether or not you can solve them. If technology is a way to do that, that's fantastic.
Sure.
So it's about understanding that use case and then solving for it. And that's what we did. We went out to solve our own problems as investors. And every time a new one came up, because really every solution creates a whole new set of problems anyway.
Sure.
That's just the reality of it. I'm not trying to be cynical about it, but it's the reality of it, right? That's what happens with every new innovation. It creates a new set of challenges with the solution that comes with it. And so when we figured out how to solve the failure problem, we also now needed to figure out the talent problem.
Okay.
And then we figured out from the talent problem that we could scale and help more people through the academy, right?
Sure.
And through the studio and corporate innovation and now civic innovation work that we do to help governments around the world create their own Silicon Valley in a box, if you will,
right?
Taking the best parts of the valley and applying it in their world so that they don't lose their top talent to the valley. Everybody thinks they have to come to the valley to start their company and raise money. They don't have to anymore. They don't have to anymore. The world's getting flatter and flatter and flatter.
So, no, I 100%
thing.
agree with you. Yeah, no, I agree with you. But I'm curious, what types of stuff do you take out of the valley and give to other like people in government or corporations to actually implement?
Yeah, so this actually speaks to the pedagogy of the academy. There's really 4 pillars: mindset, mastery, career, and community.
Okay.
So first is you've got to have a growth mindset, and as I said, you need to be a learn-it-all. You need to know that you can be coachable, right? That at any age, time, and place, you can learn new things.
Sure.
Then based on that, mastery, understanding the building blocks of that, which is knowledge, competency, proficiency, and then ultimately mastery. We can give you knowledge and create a competent and potentially proficient human, but you can empower yourself to achieve proficiency and mastery over time with intentional and deliberate practice and repetition.
Sure.
The old Gladwell 10 years and 10,000 hours thing. It's true. It's a thing. You can do it at any time and place. The third is career. You need to be mindful of your own career path and focus and develop yourself that way. We call it person-company fit, just like we call it product-market fit.
Interesting.
where's the right place for you as a person. There's only one of you.
Sure.
So build your own, we call it career funnel.
Okay.
And I do this talk on how to hack your career so you can get the jobs and the options that you want. And it's all about identifying who you like, what you like, because it's about the people.
Sure.
Company's just a collection of people, and it's people that make us happy or sad. It's not the work.
Sure.
So identifying who you are and the kind of people you want to be around is the first part of that. And understanding what your value is to that potential company that you want to work on based on all this criteria.
Okay.
And then you can literally build a funnel just like you do in sales or marketing and reverse engineer it and fill that funnel with companies that meet your ideal company profile. And then you start to have conversations, not interviews.
Right.
And you start to build for your eulogy and not your resume. And then you go to the world with a story that says, this is who I am and this is the kind of work I want to do and here's why.
Yeah.
And when you have that story clearly crafted, the community comes together to help you achieve that. And that community is a global community of investors and advisors and practitioners and teachers and students and alumni who all support you in getting what you want.
Sure.
And so there's your answer.
No, it's interesting because I think, and you can tell me your opinion, but so many people think too small. It's like the world's your client for most startups nowadays. Sure, if you're building something that's specific to a geographical location, that's not going to apply. But like most software businesses could be used on anybody on the planet.
That's right. You certainly have to take into account a couple of key things there.
Okay.
I would say there's about 3 or 4 things. I think the first thing is, yes, the whole world can be your oyster, but you've got to start with what's right in front of your face so that you can get to that oyster.
Okay.
And focus on a really narrow initial customer profile that helps you learn so that you can solve a problem deeply. Your bet is, and the bet that the investors are making on you in the age of applied technology is that there's a lot of people with the same problem. And if you can solve it deeply for this 1 or 2 customers, then other people will want it too.
Sure.
And so start there.
Yeah. Okay.
And get really deep with less customers, more time, solving deeper problems. So that's the first thing you do.
Okay.
The second thing is you have to consider the way your customers buy. And you have to align how you market and sell to them based on the way that they buy. So, for example, Corporate Executive Board every year does this survey of major corporate buyers in the enterprise world. Their number one frustration is that sellers don't sell to them the way that they like to buy, which shows that they don't respect and understand their process and approach towards buying things.
Yeah.
Okay. So they have to learn how to do that.
Okay.
And in order to be successful. And the third thing is there are cultural and language issues and localization issues that you have to consider if you're you're a company founded in let's just say Latin America.
Sure.
And your customers are all Spanish speaking today, and you want to bring that to the U.S.
Yeah.
You need a full immersion in the U.S. You can't just be a Latin American founder who comes over here and spends 3 months trying to get customers and go home and expect to be successful.
No.
You need a hard landing here.
Okay.
And that means, and if you want to raise money, you need to reincorporate with a Delaware C and structure yourself so that a venture capitalist will invest in you because it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And then there's cultural concerns.
Sure.
Like how does the words that you use to describe what you do play in Korea versus the U.S.
Sure.
Or how does the Korean government or Korean entrepreneurs, how do they come to the U.S. and try and sell? Because I see it all the time. There's serious issues even with companies that are moderately to highly successful in other countries who want to come to the States. They don't make the appropriate investment. They're not all in. They don't hire American talent in America to sell to market and sell and serve their customers here.
Okay, interesting.
And so they need to be, if they want to do it, you need to be serious about it.
No, I think that's really good advice. I'm curious though. There's always a talk about like how quick you should get kind of an MVP out to market, and I know that it's obviously different depending on what you're building. In my opinion, it should be probably as quick as possible. But is there kind of a rough time frame you should maybe spend on that, or what are your thoughts around getting an MVP out?
My thoughts are before you get an MVP up, you have to clearly define the problem with a customer.
Okay, so get a customer.
Yeah. Yes. Don't build anything until you've actually gotten a customer who's agreed on what the problem is and how you propose to solve
So would
it.
you show them like a prototype or like just
You
some
start with a
screens?
conversation.
Okay,
No,
so you don't even, before anything's designed or coded.
no, yeah,
Interesting.
it's too much product focus.
Okay.
No one gives a shit about our product.
Okay.
They care about their problems. And so you have to clearly, deeply define and understand the problem with that customer first, and then agree together to jointly develop a solution.
Sure.
That's the fastest and cheapest way to get to revenue.
No, I 100% agree.
And
but
then,
it's interesting.
then that determines how long it's going to take to build an MVP and what resources are required, because you let your customer drive it for you.
Sure. Well, and then you're not spending tons of money, right?
No.
And then pivoting.
And if you're smart, you're getting your customer to pay to build a product that you can sell to other people.
Yeah, that's really smart.
I wrote an article on this for SaaS called SaaS, Why It Should Be Called Service as a Software, Not Software as a Service.
Sure.
Because our most successful SaaS founders have always started with service.
Sure.
And then they get their customers to pay to build their product by solving those problems. And then that automation over time becomes something that's repeatable and scalable for others.
No, I 100% agree, but we're kind of out of time. So let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself and GrowthX.
GrowthX.com or gxacademy.com for GrowthX Academy.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Well, Sean, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show, and hopefully we can keep in touch. And
Thanks,
have
Kevin.
a good rest of your day.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Appreciate
me too.
it. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.